Hey guys, Chris Cooking Nashville here. It's time for lo mein, some Chinese takeout style carnivore lo mein, and the secret to how we do the carnivore velveted chicken or beef or pork to give you that true Chinese takeout vibe. Stick around because we're going to make some really incredible noodles tonight. All right, y'all, we have carnivore chicken lo mein in front of us. You can do this with beef or pork or the chicken, or you could do shrimp or whatever it is you really want to do. But we have some chewy lo mein style noodles with some Asian flavors to give you that Chinese takeout vibe. And I'm showing you how we do the super tender, super juicy velveted chicken that I referenced back in my previous video where I did the pasta and I was talking about doing the velveted chicken. So everybody was asking for that. This is how we do it. And truthfully, this is the cuisine where that technique comes from. So if you've had that really soft, tender, juicy meat from like a Chinese takeout type place, that is usually velveted. That's the way they get that way. So we're gonna show you guys some incredible lo mein noodles tonight. But before we dive in too awful deep, I'm gonna let Miss Ash enjoy some of these incredible lo mein noodles.
I think that's a great idea.
Help yourself.
Yeah, I'm super excited.
Tell us what you think.
Super excited. All right, two things. One, this looks really good, and I used to love Chinese takeout, and we haven't gotten it in I don't even know how long. Two, though, I suck with eating chopsticks, so please no judgment. Ooh,
look, you're doing great.
Look at that. Look at that, though. It smells so good. Wow, hold on. Man, that is so good. Your noodles, I'm impressed how thick they are. Like they're clearly like a thicker, heavier noodle. No taste of egg. I love the seasoning. The chicken is like the softest, juiciest piece of chicken I've ever had. So good.
It looks very much like a Chinese takeout, like a long, springy noodle. And are the noodles chewier and different than my regular pasta noodles?
They definitely are, yes. They're definitely like thicker and chewier. Man, these are really good. It really is like lo mein though. Look they still have like the texture and stuff. So good. This is seriously like the best, juiciest chicken I've ever eaten. That's good. That's good.
She loves the lo mein. She loves the chicken. Before we dive in and make ourselves just completely stuffed on this carnivore version of Chinese takeout, why don't we go ahead and show them how they can make lo mein at home and keep it carnivore. All right, to start out this recipe, we're going to need 2 chicken breasts. One is going to be for the noodles. One is going to be for the chicken. So if you want to use some other kind of meat for your lo mein, you can do that, and you'll only need 1 chicken breast for the noodles. So the first thing I'm going to do is trim off these little bits of fat and sort of gelatinized looking skin and connective tissue. You don't absolutely have to do this, but this does make it much nicer. So just trim off all of these little bits that aren't pure meat. Any of the white fat, any of the connective tissue. Try to clean that chicken breast up as much as you can. Once we have that trimmed up, we're going to find the grain of the chicken. You can see the striations in the meat run in this direction from end to end. So we're going to slice this across that grain at a 90-degree angle so that it's more tender. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut long slices of this with that grain running the same direction, because then we're going to turn these 90 degrees and cut them into pieces, and those pieces will be at a 90-degree angle. So we're just going to turn these 90 degrees and cut into slices. So the grain of the meat is running in this direction, which means when we cut slices in this direction, we're cutting 90 degrees to those meat striations. And by doing that, you can see all of the end grains of the meat. That's going to make this much more tender when you eat it. Now we're just going to place all of our cut chicken pieces into a bowl so we can velvet this. The first thing I'm going to do is sprinkle salt generously over this chicken as if I was going to season this to eat it. Use as much or as little seasoning as you want. The next thing I'm going to do is add some baking soda. Now this is going to be about 1/4 to 1/2 of a teaspoon. You don't want too much, because if you get too much, it's going to taste real funky. So just use about 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda for an entire chicken breast and sprinkle that over the top. Next, we're going to need an egg white, so I'm going to separate this egg, put the egg white over top of the chicken, and leave the yolk in a separate bowl. Now we need to get in here with our fingers and really rub that egg white, baking soda, and salt, and whatever other seasoning you've used through the meat. This is going to change the pH of the meat. We're going to let it sit and marinate for a little while, and that is what's going to tenderize this meat perfectly. To help with that beautiful brown coating and the flavor, we're going to use a little bit of beef gelatin as well. Any unflavored gelatin will work. We're just going to take about a tablespoon. This does not have to be exact. We're going to sprinkle this over top of this chicken mixture and mix it through really well. 1 to 2 hours later, here's our ingredients for making our lo mein noodles. We're going to use 4 large eggs. This is the other chicken breast that I had. This is going to come out to 1 cup of cubed chicken breast that is raw. That's what we need, is 1 cup of raw cubed chicken breast. This is 4 tablespoons of egg white powder. That's going to come out to about 25 grams. 2 tablespoons or about 10 grams of unflavored gelatin. 1 cup of full fat sour cream. If you decide to use yogurt of some kind, you'll probably need more egg white powder because of the water content. 1/2 teaspoon or about 3 grams of baking soda. And we're going to use a food processor, but you could also use a blender if need be. So let's get our food processor ready and make some lo mein noodles. First thing we need to do is trim off all of the white fat and weird connective tissue pieces of this chicken breast. We want to try to get this as clean as possible. Next, we just need to cube up this chicken breast so we can measure out about a cup of this. I do this by volume and not weight because water content in the chicken breast can change the weight drastically, so it's easiest to just measure this as a cup by volume. Now we take our cup of chicken breast cubes and place those into our food processor. Don't forget, lots of washing your hands when working with raw chicken. Next, we're going to sprinkle in about a 1/2 teaspoon or about 3 grams of baking soda over the chicken. Don't get too much or it can taste funky. Now we're going to put the food processor back together and essentially make a chicken mousse. If you're using a blender, you're just going to put all of these ingredients into a blender and turn it on all together. But in a food processor, you want to do the chicken and the baking soda by themselves at the beginning. Turn this on and let it run until you get a smooth chicken paste just like this. Now we add in our sour cream. We're going to go ahead and pulse that and then turn on the food processor and mix that in completely as well. Next, we're going to add in our gelatin over the top, and we're going to mix that in thoroughly as well. Once you've added the gelatin, you will need to start scraping down the sides to make sure there are not lumps or clumps stuck anywhere in your food processor or blender. Once that is fully combined, we can add in our egg white powder and mix it thoroughly the same way we just did with the gelatin to make sure there are no clumps. And once again, we scrape down the sides. Now we're going to go ahead and add 4 eggs directly on top of this mixture, 1 at a time. Once the first egg is mixed in, I'll go ahead and crack in egg number 2. Once that's combined, we'll add number 3. And then number 4. If you're using a blender, you won't have to do this. Everything goes in all at the same time. Scrape down the sides one more time just to make sure there are no clumps, and we're going to be good to go. This smooth, creamy texture is what you're looking for this noodle batter. I'm going to link this silicone dehydrator tray down below. Any kind of a tray that you could use to bake these will be fine. I'm just going to use some lard to grease this. You just want to make sure you're either using a very well greased silicone baking tray or some kind of parchment paper so we can bake this noodle batter. I'm going to split this mixture as evenly as I can between 2 of these silicone baking trays. Get yourself some kind of a spatula to spread this out as evenly as you can. These offset spatulas work really well. I will also link that down below. And if you find any pieces of chicken meat that are not blended up, just feel free to pluck those right out. And these do not have to be perfect, but just try to get them as even as you can so that they will bake as evenly as possible. Now we're going to place these noodle batter pans into a 325-degree oven. We're going to set a timer for 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, we can go ahead and pull these noodles out. They should be done, and you'll be able to tell that they're cooked because they're beginning to pull away from the edge of these silicone trays, or you'll see the edge starting to lift on whatever you're baking them on. Now we just need to let these cool enough that we can handle them. Once they're cool enough to handle, we can flip them out of these silicone trays or off of the parchment paper you used, whatever you're doing. Now, while these are still warm, go ahead and roll them up into a tube and slice your noodles. Yep, those will do just fine. And here is a very large bowl of beautiful lo mein style egg noodles. I guess we'll have to wake the dog up when dinner's ready. All right, it's time to cook up some lo mein. I have a medium-high skillet, and I'm going to use some lard. Use any animal fat that you like. This is a couple of tablespoons. And now we're going to add in this velveted chicken that has that beef gelatin on top of it. Once you get this spread out in the pan, we're going to let it sit so it gets some color on one side. And after a couple of minutes, we can stir it and get some color on the other side. And now we're just going to saute this until the chicken is cooked and comes apart easily. And you'll know your chicken is perfectly cooked when you can easily cut it with your spatula just like that. Now we're going to set this off to the side so we can fry up our noodles. For that, we're going to add more animal fat, and this time over a medium to medium-low heat. We're just going to grab a couple portions of noodles. This recipe makes 4 to 6 servings easily. Now we just need to toss these in the melted animal fat and start to fry. You're going to get a little bit of a brown color in certain spots, and that's totally okay. After a couple of minutes of frying, we're going to add in 2 tablespoons of butter. And we'll coat the noodles in that butter as well. Now we're going to add in 1 tablespoon of my carnivore soy sauce. I will link that recipe for you down below. This is totally optional, but a tablespoon of the zero-carb rice vinegar makes a big difference in this dish. Seasonings are always optional, but I like a half teaspoon of garlic powder and a half teaspoon of white pepper. You're going to notice the noodles are starting to look fried and a little bit drier. That's exactly what we want. Now we're going to crack 1 whole egg, and we're going to take that egg yolk from the initial egg white we used for velveting the chicken. We're going to mix those together and whisk them up really well in this bowl. While I'm whisking this, I have my heat turned off and I'm letting the temperature of the noodles come down so that we do not scramble this egg. So while the noodles are still hot, we're going to add the chicken. Stir that together briefly. And then pour the egg around the noodles while they're still warm. And then we're going to mix this all together and let the residual heat from the pan and the noodles cook that egg to coat the noodles. Taste these noodles for salt, and it's time to plate them up. All right, y'all, that's how we make the carnivore lo mein noodles with that velveted chicken. Now that velveting technique, you can do that with chicken. I did it with chicken breast, but you can do it with chicken thigh if you really wanted to, although thigh, it's not usually necessary. You can do this with any kind of sliced beef. You can do this with pork strips. You can do it with anything that you would normally get in one of those like Chinese takeout style dishes. That's what they do to get that meat so tender and so beautiful. There are some places that will tell you that when you velvet meat like that you should not be using baking soda like I do. They actually just do like a marinade or like salt kind of a brine. You're putting starch on the outside of it, and that's what a traditional velvet is. But truthfully, you can get a very similar result by using the baking soda and the salt and the egg the way that I did. And then with that beef gelatin, that crispy outer layer on it is just super nice. It's very, very good. And it really does feel like eating Chinese takeout.
I've already eaten like more than half the bowl.
Yeah.
This is just delicious.
Yeah.
It really does literally remind me though of like getting Chinese takeout.
Right.
But I really appreciate this recipe because we love getting takeout like this back in our standard American diet days. And I remember the last time we did it, and there was so much soy.
Yes.
And like the next day,
We felt terrible.
I felt terrible for like a week, and I just felt literally like death.
Yeah. The soy and the seed oils, both, which are just highly, highly present in Chinese takeout, are just awful when it comes to how we feel after we have them. And that's why we haven't had it again in so very long.
It's one of the things I really enjoy, but it's definitely a cheat meal that I personally have learned is just not worth it.
Yeah.
I'm just grateful that you came up with this though, because now I think we should like make some of this and like go watch a movie on the couch or something. Like, this is awesome. So I'm a big fan, hun. I really think people are gonna love this though. It is so good.
Yeah.
And it's just like Chinese takeout that we used to get back in the day.
I think you could make this. I think you could make my fried rice recipe as well. And you could put those together, and I'm working on some other stuff, so stick around, but you could make that kind of stuff and you could have like Chinese takeout in your own home without all of the seed oils and all the soy and all that kind of stuff, especially using that carnivore soy sauce that I put on this. It's so much better than doing the soy sauce that has all of the soy and the other things that are in it and everything else. So you guys can use whatever you want with that kind of stuff, and you can do this keto, you can do this ketovore, you can do this carnivore.
You should totally link your fried rice video. This would go so well with that fried rice.
Yes, well, I will link that fried rice recipe down below for you guys. Of course, all of my recipes that I'm doing here lately, these are on the recipe cards page of my website. It is printable. Just scroll down that page. They are all there. Enjoy those and make these for your family and have a good time having Chinese takeout style food again, but on a completely carnivore or ketovore or keto friendly way of doing it, depending on whatever version of the proper human diet you're using. So thank you guys so much for watching. All of my links are down below. As always, I appreciate the support from my Patreon members and my YouTube membership guys. All of the folks there in the band, you are our family. You keep us going, and we love you and appreciate you. And I've actually got a couple of things that I'm working on that I'm going to be sending out to them specifically related to using these noodles. So we're going to do some really cool stuff for you guys. Everything is down below. We love you. We appreciate you being here. This is Chris Cooking Nashville and Ash Taylor. Guys, make sure to eat your meat, especially if it looks like Chinese takeout lo mein. Love your life. And we're going to see you guys right here in the kitchen for the next recipe.
You want to fight with these? I won! I love it.